Written in a bitter mood during his last hours in Rishikesh, John wrote a song called Maharishi about the argument that ended the Beatles' stay there, containing explicit insults. But to avoid a lawsuit, it was rewritten and renamed Sexy Sadie. At a press appearance in New York on May 14, 1968, to announce the formation of Apple Corp., John initially voiced his dissatisfaction with the Indian guru, saying,
"Well, we found out that we made a mistake there. So we believe in meditation, but not the Maharishi and his scene. But that's a personal mistake we made in public, so..."
When did you find out it was a mistake?
Well, I can't remember the date, but it was in India. And meditation is good and does what they say. It's like exercise or cleaning your teeth, It works. But we're finished with that bit of it. Dun, 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 dun.
Did you say?
That was inspired by Maharishi, he said. I wrote it when we had our bags packed and were leaving. It was the last piece I wrote before I left India. I was just using the situation to write a song, rather calculatingly, but also to express what I felt. I was leaving the Maharishi with a bad taste. It seems that my partings are always not as nice as I'd like them to be. George reveals he came up with the title Sexy Sadie. John had a song he had started to write that he was singing, "Maharishi, what have you done?" And I said, "You can't say that, it's ridiculous." I came up with the title Sexy Sadie, and John changed Maharishi to Sexy Sadie.
I copped out and wouldn't write Maharishi, what have you done? You made a fool of everyone. But now it can be told, fab listeners.
Paul was informed of these happenings upon their return, and many years from now, he explains. I said, "Tell me what happened." John said, "Well, Maharishi made a pass at that blonde American girl with the short hair." So I said, "Yes? What's wrong with that?" He said, "Well, he's just a bloody old lech just like everybody else. What the fuck? We can't go following that." And I was quite shocked at them. I said, "But he never said he was a god. In fact, very much the opposite. He said, 'Don't treat me like a god, I'm just a meditation teacher.' There was no deal about you mustn't touch women, was there? There was no vow of chastity involved. Perhaps they had been looking for something more than a guy and found he wasn't a god. Whereas I'd been looking at a guy who was saying, 'I'm only giving you a system of meditation.' So I was quite glad I'd left the week before."
Has he changed? Is that why?
Well, no, I think it's just we're seeing him a bit more in perspective, because we're as naive as the next person
We
about
get
a lot of
carried
things.
away with things like that, we thought he was magic, he's floating around and flying.
Are you saying meditate but not with the yogi?
Yeah, he's good. There's nothing wrong with him, but we think the system is more important than all the big personality bit, because he gets sort of treated like a big star, and he's on the road with the Beach Boys, and it's all that thing. And it's, it's a bit strange. And also it folds, that's the silly thing.
This Lennon-McCartney song seems to have been entirely written by John Lennon, with no input from Paul, though George deserves a small credit for coming up with the title. On the lyrical front though, John's early favorite "I've Been Good to You" by Smokey Robinson deserves a small acknowledgement as well because of its opening title, "Look at What You've Done, You've Made a Fool of Someone." The song started to take shape on April 12, 1968, the day John confronted the Maharishi and started his journey home. By May 29th, the day he performed the song for George at the Kinfons house in Esher, Surrey, the song was finished. On July 19th, Sexy Sadie was introduced into EMI Studios for the first time. Once George Martin and the engineers were in place, the Beatles spent most of the day just playing on whatever came to mind. Some of these ideas ended up on a personal tape that the Beatles intended to assemble from interesting bits and pieces. Following the recording of 21 takes of the song, John confessed, "I don't like the sound very much for a kickoff. Does anybody?" Before a response could be heard on tape, it was decided to start over at a later time. 5 days later, on July 24th, they recorded 23 more takes, starting over from scratch. When John calls up the control room at the end of take 28, it is clear that they are still having trouble with the song. Before take 47, George Martin voiced his dissatisfaction with the results so far, which prompted George Harrison to reply, "There's no point in Mr. Martin being uptight, right? We're all here to do this. I mean, you're being very negative." After this exchange, take 47 was deemed the best take of the day, although George Martin continued to say that they could do a better one after take 48. By the time this session ended, John had to admit, "It's killing," indicating that the song was just not coming together as he intended. "Yeah, I know, it's not very good," Paul answered, which prompted John to say, "It's because we stopped believing in it. We forgot what it's about," resulting in Paul commenting that perhaps it was better that the song was now more sympathetic. After that, Sexy Sadie was put on hold for roughly 3 weeks in favor of other songs, the most notable of which was Hey Jude. Then, on August 13, they gave the song another go and recorded a whole new version. Entering EMI Studio 2, the boys recorded 8 more takes on the rhythm track, beginning at the rounded off number of take 100. These 8 fresh takes were performed at a slightly quicker tempo and with a lot of energy. Take 107 satisfied everyone. Sexy Sadie was finally ready for release on August 21st after an arduous 12-hour recording session. Since all 4 of the tape tracks were now full, a reduction mix had to be created after John sang a lead vocal on track 4, erasing one of his guitar tracks. At last, the song was finished, and George Martin, along with engineers Ken Scott and John Smith, completed the definitive mono mix before the session concluded. Though Maharishi was shocked that John and George had left India in April 1968, creating such a stir over something with such a tenuous basis, the Guru didn't seem to harbor resentment. 25 years later, in 1993, George traveled to see the Maharishi with his friend, the author Deepak Chopra, and used the occasion to seek forgiveness about the song Sexy Sadie and any negative publicity that might have resulted from the 1968 visit. "We were very young," George admitted. "I could never be upset with angels," Maharishi concluded.
So what happens to the daddies that get famous people is the famous people either succumb completely to the daddy and then they promote the daddy. We're like catalysts, either the Beatles or John and Yoko are catalysts. The daddy always blows their cool because they can't contain that eagerness for power and glory. You see, and it always shows itself. It showed itself in Maharishi, it showed itself in Janov. And not that now looking back, at first I was bitter about Maharishi being human. I'm a little bitter about Janov being human. Well, I'm not bitter about them being human. They're human. I'm only thinking what a dummy I am, you know. Yeah. Although I meditate and I cry. So I cannot deny it. Yeah. But I got that.
But you haven't come back.
Are you kidding? Are you kidding? No, I'm not that stupid.